Cheers to you, my friend. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox, and today we're going to unpack another episode of the journey of self-discovery. You know, the question is, why is it that I talk so much about or against tradition and conventional norms and the status quo? It's like, what is my beef against that? And it's really nothing that I have against it. It's just certain standards that I have set for myself. And for those of you that follow, that are also going through the journey of self-discovery, you are discovering and coming into the light of your own identity. The human spirit, we crave freedom. You know, we want to be free. We want to be free from the shackles of expectations, what people expect of us, what society expects of us, what's the order of the collective. And we find that the order of the collective really suppresses one's identity. And I shared many times on my show where it's something that I experienced even since I was a child, simply because I was in boarding school and I was kicked out of boarding school 3 times just for mischief. You know, I was very mischievous. Myself, Ofma, and Olga, we were the 3 youngest in the boarding school. You know, they had the boys' dorm and the girls' dorm, and we were the youngest in the ladies' dorm. And we used to do a lot of mischievous things simply because I guess we didn't have the maturity. And, you know, they expelled me once. My dad got me back. They expelled me a second time, and all for mischief. And the third time they said, that's it. She's just too much to handle. And when I went back to my country, you know, my dad, you know, they took me to psychologists and all that because they wondered what was wrong with me. But then when I was placed in a local school, I excelled. I excelled and was on the board of discipline and order for the school, you know, elected board and so forth. And I did very well, did my debutante. I was like a stellar teenager, late bloomer, but stellar. And so that's what the situation is. I'm going to take this off because it's making too much noise. I have always been in a mindset of wanting to be my own self, my authentic self, having my own individuality, being able to self-express and having the freedom to do that in whatever circle, whatever community that I'm in, just being able to be myself. Because what I find is that when you get to that point where you can be yourself, not only is there confidence, there's assertiveness, and there is just attraction about, you know, life is attracted to a place where they can land and be free. And when you're following the collective, there's a tendency to suppress your identity. Why? Because an identity has been imposed on every one of us. The minute you were born, you were given a religion, a political affiliation, you were given rules to follow. We were given all the scripts to follow when we were born, and we had no say in it. We had no determination as to whether we want to do this, that, the other. We were just given those scripts. And if you grow, you get into your adulthood with the same script. That's why some people fall into depression and anxiety. Why? Because they sometimes want to burst out. They want to be themselves, and they haven't learned emotional intelligence or critical thinking skills as to how to manage their emotions, how to break out of that system, how to break out of the limitations that's been imposed upon us by the collective, by society. You know, we're all ruled by that. We're all governed by social structures, religious identity, political affiliation, societal structures, and cultural norms. We're all subject to that. That's why a lot of folks, a lot of, teenagers sometimes, or kids, after they are finished with college, they move on. They leave their community and go someplace else where they can have a little more self-expression. Why? Because remaining in their community, there is so much expectation that is imposed upon them, and sometimes they don't want to follow those rules. They're not rebellious, they're just simply seeking self uh self-expression. They want to be able to be themselves regardless of what that is. And being in their community, especially if it's a close-knit community, they may feel judged or criticized or pressured to conform to the status quo. And the status quo comes with limitations. This is the way we do it. This is the rules we follow. This is what we are used to. And the moment you want to come outside of that, then you are judged. The status quo brings a place of, gives the illusion of comfort, of safety. But in reality, that's not true. It's just conformity. So some stay and they conform, and some just burst out and they leave. Some burn the bridges behind them and cut the ties and just stay in touch by other means other than going back, unless it's going back to see their parents and so forth. They just break out. They want a whole different social dynamics than what is offered in their town and so forth. There was Sheila shared yesterday. She said she just turned 50, or well, she's about to turn 50, I think, this month. And she wants something new. She's raised her kids, they're all grown, and she believes this, and she's a single woman, and she believes that this is her time. She wants to flourish. She wants to start thriving and do the things that she wants to do. And she said that she has learned, from the experiences of others and things that others have shared. She said that what she has found with her, or what she finds, is that she's going to have to go back and unlearn a lot of the things that she has been taught, a lot of the programming that she has been dealt with, a lot of the conditioning, a lot of the cultural conditioning, the social conditioning, religious indoctrination. She's going to have to go back and unlearn all of that. Why? Because she now realizes that it's, again, the status quo, social construct, the dynamics of the society, of the culture that she was born in. She was born in the West, here in the US, but had she been born in another part of the world, she would have another culture. So she's come to realize that this whole cultural experience is something that's been imposed upon her. And the same way she learned it when she was a little girl, she can unlearn it now, because it has nothing to do with the person that she is. And therefore, there's a conflict. There's a conflict with the collective versus her individuality, the identity that she is now discovering. She's discovering things about herself that she is embracing, and she's come to the realization that it is okay to be herself, in whatever situation, to come into that place of her authentic self, where she doesn't have to live a life trying to please others or try to diminish herself, from being bodacious and daring. And she wants adventure and spontaneity. She wants to live a life that she has not had. So as far as she is concerned, she has got to unlearn a lot of those things, because they're just things that's been learned, that's been taught, and she learned them. And with constant repetition, they became a conditioning of the mind and programming. And a lot of the things also she's saying, that she is beginning to question. That happened to me. That certainly happened to me when I also did that change on learning the things that were imposed upon me and acquiring my identity, the way I see myself, getting to know who you are. There's another episode that I shared about 2 weeks ago. Who are you? Getting to know who you are. Aside from titles and labels and roles that we play, it's not about roles, it's not about titles, and it's not about the roles, the titles, and no, it's not about that. It's about the essence of who you are. And if someone were to ask you, who are you? Most people don't know who they are. They will say, one person that was asked, she said, well, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. And, those are roles we play. Those are things that, again, it's not who you are. And then they said, I'm a child of God. And so the person asked him, well, what is that exactly? Explain it. And they really had no idea what that meant. Why? Because it was programming. It is programming based on religious indoctrination and societal construct, saying, you now have a kid, you are a mother, and you have a wife, you're married, so you have become a wife. And, instead of I see myself as a partner, as a team with my husband, not necessarily, yes, I'm his wife, but we don't do that wifey thing. We work as a team, and we always want the team to win. So what do? We capitalize on the strength of each other. So if you're good at this, you take on that responsibility. If I am good at this, I take on that responsibility gladly. So whatever it is that we do, we are doing it with pleasure. We're happy doing it. Why? Because we just breeze through it. There's certain things that I don't like to do that my husband is just great at. And vice versa. And he would say, take care of this, or do you have time to get this done? And that's, here is something you need to read up on and follow through with that. And it's okay with both of us, simply because we are functioning in our strength. The things that we like to do, that's what we assign to each other. We don't have a gender assignment type operation in our household. You were the male, you're the man, so you're supposed to take out the trash. That doesn't work that way here. We both do, depending on who puts it together. We both do. And if I don't feel like doing it, I was like, honey, can you get the trash ready? Tomorrow's trash day, and so forth. And then he does it. So it works best that way, simply because we maximize on the strength of each other. And, again, as a team, we want the team to win, and not, of course, if we're out, he introduces me as his wife, and I'll say, well, this is my sweetheart, or my husband, whatever. But so she is figuring out that she needs to unlearn a lot of the things that she's been taught. And you may be going through the same steps as well on learning things. The thing is this, look, and pay attention to this. Look, the person you want to become, the person you want to be, the person you desire to be at this point, that person already exists. That person is already out there waiting for you to arrive. That person, that version of you, my friend, that version of you is already thriving. That person, that version of you is already flourishing. That person of you that's confident, fun-loving, assertive, bold, audacious, and living a life unapologetically, unafraid, that person that is untamed, doing what the hell they want to do, and just living a life that is free and just open and curious and adventurous. That person already exists. How do I know that? That's the person you are yearning for. And that person is waiting for you to introduce yourself to them so that they can carry on. Carry on. And if you never introduce yourself to that version of you, then you will be introducing yourself to the part of you that ends up with regrets and remorse. So what you're doing with this journey of self-discovery is regret proofing your life. You want to regret proof your life because we don't have that many days in our lifetime to be unhappy. So we need to take every moment to sup and enjoy life as it is. We need to create opportunities and embrace circumstances and lend ourselves to situations that may be out of our comfort zone. But that version of you that you aspire to be, that version of you that you want to bring to the front, that person already exists. That person already exists within you, busting out, trying to. It reminds me of when I was in, when I was in boarding school. I was just bursting out, just wanting to be myself and not be, governed by rules and laws and do this. You can't do that. You can't cross this border because it's the men's dorm, and you can't go outside of the borders of the. It was like it's a big, I wouldn't call it a compound. It's a big piece of land with beautiful forestry and buildings and dorms, and the chapel is over here, and the classroom, the school is over here, and the administrative building is over here, and it was just pretty grounds. But then it was we were locked in, not like locked in by the surroundings were decorative. It was pretty and all that, but there were borders that we could not cross. And the days that we were allowed, there were like certain time of the month that we could go out into the city and have like a field day, I guess is what they call it. That was just, we just lived for that day and so forth. But so you want to, all those rules though, they didn't serve this kind of meat. They didn't do it was just so confining. And I just couldn't stand it. And that happens to a lot of people now. They're living a life that is, and sometimes you don't even realize that even though you want to come out, your loyalty is to the fears that you have. Your loyalty is to the apprehensions that you have. Your loyalty, and you don't see it that way, your loyalty is to the limitations, the confinement that you have. Why? Because you're afraid of judgment and you're afraid of criticism. Is like, what will people say if I do this, if I come out of this situation and just break loose and detach myself from this crowd, from this group, from this community, from this mindset? Because all of it really, it's like your whole thought process is caged, it's caged with a belief system. It's like being in a prison, a mental prison. And I'm sharing this with you because, these are things that I discuss with people, and they realize that it is true. A lot of it has to do with their own thoughts, and their own thoughts is what lead them to a life of limitations. And you don't want that. You don't want to be limited in the things that you are able to do. You will know your limitations. And in most cases, if your limitation is mechanical, then you know that. It's like me, you're not going to find me on one of those what do you call it, at the amusement park, those crazy rides. That is a self-imposed limitation. It's not because I don't want to, it's because I don't choose to. That's not my thrill. That is not my thrill, and that's okay. But when it comes to things that are outside of the mechanics, things of your thought process, you want to make sure that your mind is programmed and conditioned based on the things that you desire. And you have the desire. That's why I mentioned earlier that version of you, my friend, that version of you already exists. That person already exists. You are already alive and well. That person that is healthy. Somebody asked the other day, they were talking about, somebody that's going through a situation right now, health-wise. And they said, why is it that and this, of course, has to do with the Christian religion. And the question was, why is it that unbelievers or people of the world appears to have a better life than people that are Christian, people that are believers, people that are, church goers? They're loyal, they're faithful to all, to the doctrine, and they follow the rules. And why is it that people of the world live better lives? And that was a question. And I said, and I know that because I was once a believer. I don't follow any Christian or any religious doctrine at this point, but I was once, in that community. That's because a Christian community, you are bound, the doctrine of that religion, number one, it's based on fear, and it demands obedience, compliance, and things of that nature. So your life is, or the Christian's life is based on performance. It's burdened with those thoughts, with rules, laws to follow, obedience. You always want to be in line with a deity. So you are, and when you, in terms of health, Christians honor suffering. You think it's something to be honored, something that's good. In the meantime, you have unbelievers over here. They're not burdened with those thoughts. They're not burdened with offending anyone or getting out of line or not following rules. And, they are involved in life, in the world as it is. They can read whatever. I remember when I was a Christian, I was told, the secret, don't even touch that. Don't read, don't get into the secret because it's demonic. Astrology, oh, that is bad. In the meantime, you had the three magicians that took the gifts, when, according to the script, when Jesus was born, they were magicians. But, you talk about astrology, like I'm this, that, the other, whether it's Aries, Pisces, Sagittarius, whatever, that is bad. So people of the world or unbelievers, people that are not Christians, they are not burdened with those thoughts. Having to please someone, having to behave a certain way, having to conform to certain norms and traditions and status quo and all of that. They are not burdened with that. We are not burdened with that. I remember when I was I spent many years as a Christian. When my husband met me, I was like deep into religion and so forth. And he kind of came along and followed with me until he said, that is it, I'm done. That's when he was, after a good, 10, 15 years, whatever, he said, I'm done. He said, it is the same message being spun different ways, just regurgitating the same thing over and over. And he says, we're not growing. We are not growing. We are not flourishing in life. And it took me a while. It took me a couple of months to really absorb that. And fortunately for me, he is amazing, and he did not put any kind of pressure on me to say, well, like, let's leave. No, he was just gentle. And he said, that's it. He said, I'm done. I am done with this routine every Sunday going to church, and it was something else. And especially during football season, sometimes he would want to, because our church service was like at 1:00 in the afternoon. And if the games, the football game started at noon, and sometimes he would stay home, and I would be mad as hell. I would be so angry, whether it start, because if we went to church at 1, we wouldn't be out till like 4, because it was like long and drawn out. And after church, you go out with friends to dinner. We would not be coming home until like 7, 8 o'clock. And of course, at that time, we did enjoy the friends that we engaged with and so forth. But he got tired. He got tired of that routine. And he just didn't feel any growth, anything that any excitement in our lives. And I am so grateful to my husband, because had it not been for him, and I'm thankful for myself for being smart as well, because I know situations where the woman would not follow their husbands, and they stayed with their religion and have not progressed at all. Have not doing the same thing over for years, the same thing over and over and over and over for years, have not progressed. Wherein they could have had a great relationship, but in their minds, and in those situations, divorce ensued, or separation, breakup, whatever. They just didn't last, because the husbands wanted out, or they just wanted to live a different lifestyle, and the woman always, well, not always, but in those situations, they stuck with their religion. But in my case, and of course I saw that, and in my case, I'm like, no, and my husband allowed some time once he made his point. And he never pushed me or anything like that. And we didn't have any situations at church. We were good. We were leaders in the church, had a great community, had a good relationship with our pastors and so forth. But we realized that it was just an ongoing thing. It was just a routine. There was no growth. There was nothing that we could not do on our own. And of course, after we left, I started searching for truth. And then you come to this place where you know the truth, you know your truth, and that's the truth that sets you free. So when I talk about the life of a Christian versus the life of a person that's not a Christian, an unbeliever, if you will, because, as a Christian, there's just duality. There's good and bad, right and wrong. There is believers, unbelievers, saved, unsaved. There's just a lot of things that you have to be mindful when you are, and you can't think that morality comes from a doctrine, because it doesn't. Because if you really read your Bible, you'll see that there's a lot of promiscuity based on the definition that we have for that in the Bible, and just a lot of wicked things that comes from above, from God himself, all down to the Christians of today. You see it. There's no honor in that. Perhaps before, but not anymore. It just doesn't work that way, because everything is conditional. Today, I even have people that I know, some family members, they would not talk to you unless you line up with their mindset. And the thing with people over here that are not Christians, we can embrace the world. We can embrace different cultures, different nationalities, ethnicities. I don't subscribe to any bias. Like some people may want you to be biased to a certain race, or I don't do that. Why? Because once you have traveled and you meet people, the essence of who they are. They're so genuine, and some are authentic. And you get to embrace different cultures, and you get to love people, because you realize that none of us, we are not better than anyone. No one is better than us. We are all bleeding the same red blood. So once you come to that understanding that people are people, and we have compassion for those that go through a hard time, and we help people because we are people. It doesn't matter what your nationality, your ethnicity, your culture, your race, none of that matters when it boils down. And in my mind, I have had to come to a place of clarity with that, to know and understand and make my own decisions of my whole thought process, my whole rhetoric, my whole thought process having to do with the people that I have in my life. I have some amazing people in my life of different cultures, different nationalities, different backgrounds, different social experiences. And these are people that I have come to love. I'm not going to shun them simply because they don't believe like me. And that's what, in religion, that's what it does. It says, do not be equally yoked with unbelievers. And if I followed that, I would not have married my husband, even though, when I married him, he was a Christian, but of a different, he was of a more structured sect, and based on my doctrine or the group that I was in, he would have been an unbeliever. But I tell you something, I love that rebellious spirit in me, that rebellious chip. They call it rebellion. I call it self-respect. I just love that. It is self-care, self-respect, self-awareness when you know who you are. And now that I look back, I see that I've had that for the longest time. And I just embrace that, because had I gone by that thought process, had I gone by that rule, like don't marry outside of your camp, because during that time, I was single by choice. And, there's some men in my circle that, wanted to date me and things like that. But I knew there was no attraction, and I didn't bother with it. I don't want to waste time, because first of all, I was career driven. So I was interested in my own career, and I wasn't interested in just dating just to date. And when my husband came along, he was just the man. He was just the guy. And until this day, he's just been amazing. But I didn't follow that rule. Had I followed that, I would have said no and shut the door. I would have said no and closed the door to an amazing relationship that we have had for over 3 decades. So you can't, again, there's that chip. And it's funny because, when I think about things that now that I go back and, we talk about it, we think about it and so forth, I had that chip. I had that worldly chip on the inside of me. I remember one time we have this at church, when I was at church, and, I think that this is hilarious. So the women's ministry, one of my friends, my close friend, she was the director of women's ministry. And we used to, have activities every month and so forth. And one particular month, I said to her, for those of you that are in the U.S., you may be familiar with the talk show, The View. The View, they have 5 women with different opinions, different political views, different socioeconomic. views and backgrounds and so forth, that, they get together and they discuss different topics. And I said to the director of the women's ministry, I said, why don't we have a an event? It was Saturdays, when once a month they would have like a women's event, and whatever, speaker or something of that effect. And I said, why don't we have something kind of like The View? We'll choose a topic and we will unpack it. There'll be like 4 of us, and we all have different views and so forth. And the subject was Vashti. Do you know who Vashti is? Vashti was the queen of, I think his name is, he was a king of Persia. Look it up. He's the king that chose Esther. That whole movie, For Such a Time As This. Ahasuerus or something like that. Ahasuerus, king of Persia. And she was the queen. And one day he put this whole big old party together, and he had like all the leaders of the city, of every town, and all the men, came together, and he had like a drunken stupor. He had and it was like a party. I don't know. It went on for over a week, and they would just be drunk as you cannot even imagine. And one time the king got so drunk, and Queen Vashti was a beautiful woman. She was just absolutely beautiful based on the criteria that, the standards of beauty that they deem appropriate at that time. Anyway, he wanted to show her off. And so he sends to call her, and he wanted her to come out in her birth suit. He wanted her to come out and kind of like prance around and show her beauty and so forth. And she said no. She said absolutely not. And, in those times, you don't say no to the king. You don't say no at all. Now, when you say Vashti, in that circle that I was in, Vashti is known as a rebel, rebellious, and not everyone liked Queen Vashti at all. Why? Because she was rebellious against the king. She did not comply with his orders. And personally, I like Queen Vashti. The reason I like her is because she had boundaries and she had standards. And even though she was the queen of the king, Ahasuerus, she said no. Why? Because she had personal dignity. She had dignity. She had a character that, said no, even though he's the king, I'm the queen, I am not going to parade myself in front of all those drunken men just for him to show off my beauty. So she said no, and she was excommunicated. She was thrown out of the kingdom and sent away. And that's when Queen Esther came in and was chosen and so forth. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that, but look up the story and read it. The point was, I said the topic for this, The View, is going to be Queen Vashti. And so let's set it up where we can each expose our different opinions about that. Some were in favor, some were not, and each one of us did. And, we had that whole event, and not everyone was happy with it. We had to get clearance from the pastor's wife. And I know she was probably reluctant in approving that whole segment, but the way we exposed it to her, presented it, she said yes. But the Saturday that we presented it, not everyone bought into it. Why? Because people's mind are limited. They're limited to the script, that they live by, and they could not think outside of the limitations of what they deem right, correct, or proper. So they had a thought process that was based on the box, the confinement, the stifling ideologies that they have, and they couldn't think beyond that. But once you step out and you say, wait a minute, the world is, and you start looking at the queen, is like, wait a minute, she had some dignity. She said no. And my question was, if that were you, would you have done it? Would you have gone in your birth suit to parade in front of those men? Probably not. So my point is, my mind always functioned. My mind always wanted to expand, to be curious about things, because when I lived in New York and California and so forth, I was living a rich life. I was living a life that was bliss. It was wonderful, and I am grateful for the way I think, because the way I think always attract good things toward me. But even back then, I was embracing things of the world, being myself the best that I could, even within the confinement of religious doctrine. So with you, whatever it is that you are going through, that person that you want to be, pay attention as to who that person is, because one of two things are going to happen. You are going to meet that person and love and embrace her, or you're going to meet the remorse and the regrets of life. You're going to go through life with, remorseful regret that you haven't done that. And if you come to find out years later, and hopefully now that you're going through this journey of self-discovery, hopefully you realize now so that you can really burst out and start enjoying life. I'm telling you, my husband and I, we've always had a great relationship, but the moment we left that whole mindset, our life just was blissful. Our relationship became more fun. Why? We didn't carry the burden of, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to pray for this, you have to pray. We didn't do any of that. We didn't do any of that. Our sex life was savage. Wonderful. I mean, why? Because we were able to self-express without guilt. Because religion, when it talks about, when you think about sex, it makes you, it suppresses your expression, your feeling. It suppresses it. So you're not expressive, because because there's guilt, judgment. You think you're doing something bad. But after you're freed from that mindset, then you can be 100% expressive. And if you're with your partner, you just really enjoy just open, free, pleasurable intimacy. That's another thing. When I mention about why do Christians suffer, there's always, you meet everyone and they're telling you, I know my friends, they're waiting for a breakthrough. In the meantime, we are breaking the door down. We are making things happen. We are, being innovative and creative and doing things and making decisions and taking responsibility for our lives and really stepping into that place of sovereignty, being responsible and knowing in your mind that you are responsible for your life and for the things that happens to you. Things happen, you don't blame, or devil or give you. No. You know that you're responsible for your life. In the meantime, over here, they are burdened with, and I don't say that disrespectfully, that's just the way it is. And the reason I know that is because I was part of that community. My life was before I got born again, and during the time that I was a Christian many years, and then after I walked that path, I walked that experience. I know from my own experience. And I like this better. I used to think prospering and having pleasure was a bad thing, was worthy of judgment. And now my whole idea is the purpose of life is pleasure. Some people question when I say that. The purpose of life is pleasure. Yes, I mean that. You want to prosper, and you want to have pleasure in everything. Not just, pleasure in everything. Pleasure in your giving, pleasure in your relationship, pleasure in your connections, in the things that you do. You want to have pleasure, or you could have suffering. Now, if you put a badge of honor on suffering, then that's your idea, but that's not my idea. And it's interesting. The reason I say that, as a matter of fact, I saw that one of my friends, somebody I know, recently shared something about, there's so many things that's happening in the world, but we need to stay on the positive, or we can continue on the negative. But we need to know that we're responsible for ourselves, and we need to, stay in positivity and all of that. And I just embrace that mindset, because the more positive you are, or not more positive, you're either positive or negative. When you walk in that mindset, it's like you open doors and you attract positive experiences in your health. When I think about my own health, I met Mila, Mila and Anastasia and Anna and Helen and Luba and Vika, wonderful folks. And I mentioned last week, I learned so much from this circle of women that I met. And one of the things that I was inspired to do, I like to walk. I can walk miles every day. And I really enjoy that. But now it's come a point where I need to start building up some muscles and strengthening my muscles and so forth. And all of them, were an inspiration to me. So yesterday, I went to the gym and renewed my membership. I hadn't been in a long time. I used to go to one place and I used to play racquetball and blah, blah. And before that, I used to, the one where I went to renew, I used to do all the weights and really loved it. But I hadn't been in a long time. And I justified it because, I walk. Well, walk is aerobics. It's kind of different from, you doing the actual weightlifting and so forth. But I wasn't, because I know like a couple of them, that's part of they're like trainers, I guess. And it's just, they were an inspiration to me. So I went yesterday and I renewed my membership. So I just need to get in my mind how many times a week I want to go and so forth. These are things that you do for yourself. Why? Because it's self-expression. I want to express myself a certain way, and I'm not waiting for someone to tell me or to encourage me or to push me. I am going to self-motivate. I make those decisions for myself. Not only is it better for my health, but it's also my mind. It's better for my, my health. And it's not because you know what? As we grow, develop in life, you as a matter of fact, Shirley was saying the same thing. She says, when she was growing up, she said that one abstained from eating to stay skinny. And that was something that was impounded on her, watch what you eat, blah, blah. And she said now her mindset is to eat to stay healthy, not skinny, but healthy. Totally different mindset. So she was saying that she has to unlearn that, remove that chip that you abstain from eating, and you hardly eat just simply because you want to be skinny. She said, no, at this point, she said, I want to be able to enjoy life, enjoy the things that I like, but eat to stay healthy, to be healthy for her health, to promote health. Why? Because she's learned something. She's learned the value of the foods that she eat and what it does to you and all of that kind of stuff, regenerate the cells and stuff. That is the whole idea. And, when I heard that from her, I thought, wow, that's really great. So she's unlearning all the things that society deemed important when she was younger. And now that she's at this stage of her life, now that she's in this chapter, she's making the decisions. And she's saying now it's about gaining health, staying healthy as she arrived into that chapter of her 50s and so forth. And I agree with her. Comes a point where you don't live to please people. You live based on the understanding that you have, and it's all self-care. It is about you, my friend. It is about you. So make decisions, because that person that you are desiring to be, that person already exists. And that person is waiting to introduce themselves to you, or vice versa, waiting to meet up with you so that you can burst out and be expressive in all your glory and the fullness of who you are, being expressive and confident and assertive and bold and adventurous and curious about life. Getting rid of the old, embracing the new, getting rid of the status quo, getting out of your comfort zone, getting rid of the thought of que sera, sera, and just waiting, getting rid of the mindset that, suffering, there's honor. No, you take responsibility for your life and do the things, channel your mind, your thinking in a way where you embrace and you attract health. You think health. You think of yourself health. Mental health and physical health. And you do whatever you need to do to make sure that you nurture that. That person already exists, my friend. That person already exists. That version of you already exists. And they're waiting to introduce themselves to you. So this journey of self-discovery, it's no surprise to who you already are. It may be a surprise to you when you discover that you had all this bodaciousness on the inside of you, that you had all this chutzpah, that you had the ability to say no and to set boundaries and to make decisions and have choices. You will discover a new you. Don't hesitate. Don't procrastinate. Don't wait. Because you'll be waiting and waiting and waiting. I know people that they are just, that they want a different life. And I talk to them, and they want to do this and they want to do that. And they want to, and they've shared with me, I just wish I had a friend of the opposite sex with whom I can do fun stuff with, go to the movies, go out and have dinner, be entertained by a show and so forth. And they share that with me. That is the passion they have in their hearts, in their gut, in their intuition, but they're limited by a mindset as to how to go and where to go to put themselves in a situation where they would meet people like that. And I would share, I said, you may not meet that person, but, I know people. I know a lot of people, male and female. And if it were just by gender to match, I could do that easily. But some people you say, well, no, like I would say to my husband, do you think this person would match well with? And he would say, no, 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 no. And that's true. So whatever it is that you desire, you need to become that. If you want fun loving, then you need to become fun. You need to learn how to become fun loving. If you want somebody with high integrity, well, then yeah, a lot of people that I know, they people have integrity, so you exude that. If you want someone with a good social personality, then you need to put yourself out there. That person already exists. The version of you that you desire to be, that person already exists. That person is already flourishing, and that person is already thriving in life. You know it, and I know it. Why? Because you feel that thing on the inside, and you fantasize as to what you would do, what you would say, where you would go, how you would live, and all of that. And if it means changing location, relocating, moving, if you're not comfortable in the circle, the society that you're in, then move. Do whatever you need to do. You take responsibility for your own life, and you do what you need to do. My friend, it's fascinating. When you decide to take responsibility for your life, for yourself, for the decisions that you make, and to live life on your own terms, I'm telling you, that's when life begins. That's when life begins, because you will start attracting different things, people, situations, places, circumstances, and you will just have to adapt. But that person already exists. You won't have a lot of work to do because that person already exists. That person, that version of you already exists. You will just be coming into the fullness of who you are, the best version of yourself. I'm going to leave you with that so that you can sup on that. The best version of yourself, your authentic self, beautiful self, real and confident, assertive, bodacious. It's who you are. That's the person that can walk into a room with presence. Why? Because you know who you are. You know who you are. You don't flinch under any kind of situation, be bullied or intimidated. No, you know who you are, and you carry your presence with you. Every Thursday, we meet right here, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you can't make our date, you see these icons? They're 3. Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can pick up the show 24/7. Watch the show 24/7. And again, enjoy the show. I'm also a life coach. For those of you that may need someone to kind of walk along with you and support you in your journey, you can touch base with me. Drop me a note at info@thecynthialinoxshow.com. It's right down here. info@thecynthialinoxshow.com. Send me a note. I do offer a 30-minute complimentary chat where we kind of get to know each other and so forth. And if it works out where we are aligned with each other, then we can start the process of coaching. But again, you can drop me a note. But in the meantime, I'm telling you, pay attention to who you are. And your journey, no one said it's going to be easy, but it's your journey. So until next week, I will say ta-ta. I'll see you next week, same time, same place, and have a fantastic weekend, whatever you do. This has been a short week, but anyway, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Hasta la próxima semana, amigos. Ciao.